Hello, and welcome to the Thyroid Pharmacist Healing Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Izabella Wentz, the Thyroid Pharmacist. Whether you're trying to shed frustrating thyroid symptoms, understand your condition more deeply, or learn about the root cause approach to healing, I hope this podcast will be a useful tool as part of your healing journey. I'm going to share a little bit about my background and how I came to be the thyroid pharmacist, so we have a little bit of context, where I'm coming from, and why I'm talking to you about all things thyroid related. So, in full disclosure, I was never really interested in the thyroid gland when I was in pharmacy school. It wasn't until I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism myself, after going through pharmacy school, after having some debilitating symptoms, that I really fully began to appreciate all of the intricate things that underactive thyroid function can impact, as well as that there's a whole autoimmune component to thyroid conditions. So I really became, a Hashimoto's expert by ways of becoming a human guinea pig. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2009. I was already a practicing pharmacist, and although things looked great on the surface, I had a beautiful husband, a lovely marriage. I was living in Southern California. I had a big fluffy Pomeranian that was way too big for his breed. And I had a wonderful job working as a consultant pharmacist with clients with some rare disorders. So this was my outside world, but on the inside, I was constantly exhausted. So my husband was working New York hours in Los Angeles, and we were going to bed every night at 9 p.m. And he was waking up at like 4 a.m., where I would be barely getting out of bed at 8 a.m. to get to my 9 a.m. job, usually coming in late and exhausted. When I would get to work, I oftentimes struggled with multiple bouts of diarrhea. I had bloating. I had carpal tunnel syndrome that made it really, really challenging for me to do any kind of typing on the keyboard. I had to take Advil around the clock. I used to have to give a lot of presentations at work, and every now and then I would be doing a presentation, and right in the middle of it, I would start getting like a coughing fit. Sometimes I'd have to run out of my presentation and start vomiting. This was eventually diagnosed as acid reflux, and I was on multiple medications for that. I had tons of allergies where I just seemed to be allergic to everything all of the time. And it just seemed like every other month I was having some kind of a new symptom. I had anxiety and panic attacks. So my husband would go out running, and if he didn't come back shortly, I would be worried that, maybe he got hit by a car, maybe he went to the hospital because of a heart attack, or maybe worse, he ran off with another woman, right? So this ongoing anxiety was constantly within me. And then the thing that happened is I started to lose my hair. I was going to different doctors and asking a lot of different questions. And a lot of the things that I heard at the time were, you're just getting older. I was 25 at the time. They're like, everybody's tired. Everybody's gaining weight. Everybody's stressed out. And a lot of the feedback I was getting was essentially like, this isn't a really big deal, or it's all in your head. Some doctors would do lab tests for me, and they'd be like, okay, well, everything looks great. You're not anemic. They would tell me that my thyroid was fine, so on and so forth. But that hair loss, I think being a Leo just really, really got to me, where I was like, this is not normal for a 25-year-old woman to be losing so much hair. And so eventually because of that and the acid reflux, and because of me working in public health, helping people with intellectual and developmental disabilities advocate for themselves, that was my job on a day-to-day basis for 3 years. I think this job taught me how to advocate for myself when I had a thyroid condition, and I soon began to realize that not all doctors are created equally. And so I started to seek some more answers and some more comprehensive testing. Sure enough, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. My thyroid antibodies were through the roof. I was in the 2000 plus range for TPO antibodies, and my thyroglobulin antibodies were elevated as well. My TSH, my thyroid stimulating hormone, was also elevated. Finally, I got the diagnosis of Hashimoto's thyroiditis and subclinical hypothyroidism. At first, I was excited because being a pharmacist, I learned a lot about thyroid medications. So I was like, okay, great. Let's bring on the thyroid medications, right? And this was a part of me. I was very grateful to have the diagnosis, and I was grateful to have some answers and potentially a plan. But then the other part of me was like, wait a minute, why am I in my 20s? And why did I develop this condition that typically older women develop? And wait, there's an autoimmune component to Hashimoto's. This is like my thyroid, it isn't just being sluggish and lazy and needs to be medicated. Why is my thyroid gland under attack by my immune system? I thought I was living a very healthy lifestyle at the time. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking. I was trying to exercise multiple times a week. I was trying to exercise multiple times a week despite my fatigue. And I was getting plenty of sleep. I was eating lots of dairy, non-fat dairy. I was eating whole grain wheat, so on and so forth. I really thought I was doing all of the right things. And so, there was this bit of a disconnect for me, being a trained pharmacist on one hand and being grateful for the thyroid medications. And then another part of me wondering, why is this happening in my body? And, this is how I became a Hashimoto's expert. Really was not my intention, but I decided to use the same skills that I gained in my public health job in advocating for individuals with rare disorders to help advocate for myself and to do some research. In my day-to-day job at the time, I used to go on PubMed and I used to go to patient forums and read up all the latest literature about what was working for my clients with rare disorders, right? And so there wasn't a standard of care for them. And so I decided to look into whether maybe there were some things in the research about Hashimoto's that hadn't quite made it yet to the standard of care. And sure enough, I began to unearth a whole bunch of different things, ranging from the gluten-free diet to utilizing medications like low-dose naltrexone to utilizing T3 containing medications, not just utilizing the levothyroxine or T4 medications. And so I was armed with all of this knowledge. For a while, it was a bit of paralysis by analysis where I was like, I don't know what to do. Do I have celiac disease? Do I get tested? And so I sought the advice of an endocrinologist. And of course, the only answer I got was to start on Thyroid, which is synthetic thyroid hormone. And he sort of said, you don't have celiac disease. You don't need to be on a gluten-free diet. You don't need to do any of these other things. Vitamins don't work, supplements don't work, so on and so forth. And so I listened to that advice for a while, and I just, honestly, I just kept getting worse. The thyroid medications, they helped a tiny bit, but I went from, sleeping like 12 hours to 11 hours. And instead of wearing 2 sweaters, I was able to wear 1 sweater. But still, the acid reflux, the irritable bowel syndrome, the carpal tunnel, all of that persisted, and this inflammation and, just anxiety attacks. And I began to wonder, if this is all somehow connected. Could the irritable bowel syndrome that I've had since my first year in pharmacy school, could that be related to perhaps what's going on with my thyroid gland and the acid reflux? Could the pain be related to something? I had remembered when I was in college in my undergraduate years, I was really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed until all of a sudden, after a viral infection, I just became a shell of myself, sleeping for 14, 16, 18 hours a day, missing final exams. And I wondered, what had triggered my thyroid condition? What had triggered autoimmunity in my body? And is there anything that I can do about it? I went to different kind of doctors, and and even like healers, and sought out a lot of advice on my healing journey, tried different things. Some of the things did not turn out very well. For example, I got giant capillary conjunctivitis from taking one type of supplement. Other types of supplements made me get palpitations. Other types of interventions gave me diarrhea. Some of them caused me edema. And, I've spent a lot of money just trying to work with different professionals. Some of them gave me like healing plans that had like nothing to do with autoimmunity and Hashimoto's, that did not do anything other than provide them with lots of money and waste a lot of my time. And I was on this journey for quite a bit, just trying all of these different things and reading a lot of the promises online. My gosh, rub coconut oil over your thyroid gland. That's going to heal you. Eat Brazil nuts. Those can be very healing for you. And I would, kind of go through everything that I read, and I just tried it one by one. For a while, this just kind of made me feel worse. And I don't know if there was a specific day. I just remember having this transformation where I just looked in the mirror and I said, I'm Izabella Wentz. I'm the creator of my own universe. And I just really decided that this was going to be something that I can do, that I can take charge of my own health, and that I was going to get my health back. Around the same time, one of my cousins was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in Poland. And I was just like, I have to figure this out. That way I can help myself, and maybe I can help my cousin, and maybe I can help others. I was having terrible brain fog at the time, and so I started just taking avid note taking and figuring out what I can do to make myself better. By 2013, I was able to get myself into remission from Hashimoto's. I was able to eliminate my symptoms. The acid reflux was the first one to go. Then it was the bloating and diarrhea. Then it was carpal tunnel syndrome. Then the anxiety, and then the brain fog and fatigue lifted to the point where I was able to feel like a normal human, which kind of made me feel like a superhuman, right? Because I had been living with fatigue since I was around 18 years old. So this was about 10 plus years of living with that fatigue. And at that point, I decided I was gonna write about my experience and share it in a book. I'd never written a book before. I was working as a public health pharmacist, but I decided to take a chance, and I wrote the book called Hashimoto's Thyroiditis: Lifestyle Interventions for Finding and Treating the Root Cause. Now, I poured my heart and soul into this book. My husband helped me with getting it edited with one of his colleagues at work. My mom helped me write it, and it was really a work of my heart, and it just came through me to get this information out on paper. I decided to start a Facebook page, and I decided to start a blog just to share my experience about getting to the root cause of Hashimoto's and the things I did to make myself feel better. I was shocked by how many people picked up the book, read the book, implemented the changes, and got themselves into remission with Hashimoto's, got themselves feeling significantly better just through trying the things that I had researched. This has been, I guess, they say there are 2 days in your life: the day that you're born, and then the day you figure out what you're meant to do. And at that point, I realized that this is what I was meant to do, was to help other people take charge of their own health. I had been wanting to be a healthcare professional my entire life. I grew up in Poland, and my mom was a doctor, and so I always got to watch her in the clinic. Our house was connected to the clinic, so if she didn't have a babysitter and she had an after hours call, somebody got hurt in the small village where we lived, I would go with her and help her, bandage wounds and be her little assistant, right? So this is something that I knew I wanted to do my entire life, was help people with their health. And it has been such a joy and honor and pleasure for me to be able to help other people on their healing journeys. Since 2013, I've made helping people with Hashimoto's my full-time gig. So I left my job as a public health pharmacist, and I began to work with people with Hashimoto's on taking charge of their own health, I have the website thyroidpharmacist.com, and I've also written the New York Times bestselling guide, Hashimoto's Protocol, which gives you 90 days of specific protocols you can follow to take charge of your own health with Hashimoto's and eliminate your symptoms. And I've also written a Hashimoto's cookbook. So as you can tell, I'm very, very excited about Hashimoto's and giving you the tools and resources that you need to take charge of your own health and empower you. So why am I starting a podcast, right? It's sort of like 2025, and a lot of people had started podcasts in 2020. I hope that my podcast can be a place for you to go when you're looking for healing, whether that is to overcome any of your thyroid symptoms, to reduce your thyroid antibodies, to get them into the remission range, to shrink thyroid nodules, or perhaps if you're dealing with other health challenges and you're looking for a functional medicine approach to those. This podcast will be released on a weekly basis, so do expect that. I will be releasing a combination of solo episodes like this one, where I'm sharing some of my insights and some of the things I've learned from research, my clients, or my colleagues. I'll be talking about common nutrient deficiencies with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. And then I'll be talking about some of the different triggers that drive Hashimoto's, such as impaired stress response, and what are some of the strategies to heal that, such as impaired ability to detox and the strategies for addressing that. I'm also going to have different experts join me for podcast episodes where I'm so excited to pick their brains on how to heal various conditions. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons of some of the latest innovations in health, such as using peptides for anti-aging, aesthetics, as well as weight loss, using various thyroid supplements, including T2, different types of diets, such as the low iodine approach and even the carnivore diet. And then we're also, of course, going to be talking about how all of these need to be modified for people with thyroid conditions. I'll also be interviewing experts that I trust and that have personally helped me grow and have helped me and my family overcome different things, or people that I've learned from, on the speaker circuit in the last few years. We're going to be talking about eczema. We're going to be talking about ulcerative colitis. We're going to be talking about perimenopause, ADHD, just some of the few episodes that are coming up. So I think you'll really enjoy this podcast, whether you've just recently been diagnosed with a thyroid condition or if you've been on your thyroid journey for quite some time, whether you're thriving or whether you feel like you're the healthiest sick person and not sure what to do. If you're a health seeker who's passionate about getting to the root cause, somebody that's open-minded and is interested in the best protocols that work for healing, whether that is medications or whether that's natural remedies. I'm a pharmacist and I like to kind of look at the best of both worlds. So I'm passionate about sharing the tools and resources that work, whether that's prescription medications, off-label medications, nutrients, supplements, diets, mindset techniques, other types of healing modalities. I'm passionate about them all, and I can't wait to share with you what actually works. Moreover, if you want to be empowered and are excited about taking charge of your own health, I think this podcast is going to be a big hit for you and a really big value add on your healing journey. My mission is to empower you so that you can be the CEO of your own health. Some things we have coming up on the docket. I'm going to be talking about how to reverse food sensitivities. When I was first on my healing journey, I had to be gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, egg-free, and grain-free. These days, I'm only gluten-free. I'm going to share how to reduce thyroid antibodies. So I've been able to get mine down from over 2,000 to under 100. I've helped many people reduce their thyroid nodules by accident. Had no idea that my interventions would help with that, but we've had a lot of success with that. So I'll be sharing how to do that. I'll be talking about the common thyroid nutrients and how to get tested for them, which ones you need to test for, which ones you can just do without testing, and I'll be going deep dive into thyroid fatigue. I think this is a great place to start for a lot of people, because once that fatigue lifts, you have a lot more energy to do all the other things that you want to do in life and to really live your best life and be the person that you're meant to be. One of the things that I was super worried about when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's was that I would never be able to have children, because Hashimoto's increases the risk for fertility issues, multiple miscarriages, difficulty with becoming pregnant. Plus, I also had this like fatigue, and I was like, I can barely take care of myself. I'm exhausted every day after work. How am I ever going to be able to take care of a child? I also had markers of premature ovarian insufficiency in my 20s, so I just never really knew if motherhood was going to be something that happened for me. And then in 2018, I had my beautiful son, Dimitri, and this has really been the biggest blessing, the biggest gift that I could ever receive, was to be a mom and to be a mom to him. You know, I will say that being a mom and being a parent has been another huge learning opportunity for me. So just as Hashimoto's has become an important teacher for me, going through the postpartum period and perimenopause, and also some of my husband's and some of my son's health challenges have been really important teachers for me. In 2018, my son was born, and he had some breathing issues at birth and some feeding issues at birth, and he ended up having to stay at the NICU. During that time, my husband started to have some really challenging digestive symptoms, and our primary care doctor recommended that he go get a colonoscopy because the symptoms were so serious. When my son was 2 weeks old, my husband was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Now, it wasn't just digestive symptoms that he was having. He also started to have some really odd symptoms like terrible fatigue and insomnia and irritability and a lot of pain throughout his body. And so part of my postpartum recovery was, really trying to take care of my baby son and trying to figure out what was going on with my husband. And so through that process, I was able to reach out with some friends and figure out how to heal ulcerative colitis. As the years went by, my sweet son was diagnosed with eczema. I made a few phone calls, and through the help with some colleagues, we were able to heal eczema. And as I've worked with various clients over the years, they've come to me for Hashimoto's, and I've been able to help them with that. But I've also been able to help them with other things, such as fatigue or migraines or headaches or skin issues. And so at this point, I'm ready to have these conversations. I'm ready to share with you all of the things that you can do to help yourself when you have a thyroid condition. And I also want to share with you all of the things I've learned in the last few years. So we're going to have conversations about the thyroid. We're going to have conversations about autoimmunity. We're going to have conversations with some of my colleagues and experts on how to heal all kinds of things, whether that's eczema or irritable bowel syndrome or ulcerative colitis or fatigue or chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia or SIBO. And I'm so excited to be there. I know how important it is to have a place you can go for trusted advice. I've built up quite a network of people that I've grown to trust, to the point where I feel like most illnesses are just a phone call away for me to be able to reach out to somebody that can help. So that you don't miss anything, make sure to subscribe. And if that information resonates or has helped you, or if you could think of anybody that might be helped by this information, please share it with your friends that might benefit. So, in honor of the podcast launch, I'd love to give away some resources for you. One resource I have created recently is the Root Cause Recipes Cookbook. This is a 100-page cookbook in full color that's full of gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy recipes to get you started on a healing diet. You can get that info from the show notes. And I also am giving away copies of my book, Hashimoto's The Root Cause, the book that really started it all. It's been published in 2013 and has become an accidental New York Times bestseller. First self-published book that actually got to that. And I'll be giving it away for the cost of shipping. So I'll put the information on how to claim your copy in the show notes as well. And I'll really be taking your input into consideration. So please let me know if there are resources and guides that I can create for you. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that this podcast will be an important part of your healing journey.